So, before I begin, I want to give our praises to Yahweh Bashim Al Shah Bashim Achakwadash. I want to say the apostles of the great millstone, the Shalom that I give teaching his word out of four corners and true sincerity. I'm back with another lesson through Spirit by Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. I will be edifying unto the elect of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. On the topic of this lesson, our praying topic, the true name of God is Yahweh, which means he is or he exists. The true name of his son is Yahweh Shai, which means he saves or he delivers. Okay, Yahweh is going to send Yahweh Shai in these last days, okay, to deliver the elect from the four corners of the earth, because we are living in these last days. All right, Babylon is about to be destroyed. All right, we're about to rule, the earth, rule the universe, pretty soon. All right, believe it or not, all right, you will see it. Okay, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans will be the head. All right, won't be the tail. Okay, but the topic of this lesson, is going into how America is going to be destroyed in 1 hour. Okay, the destruction of, America will be done in 1 hour when those nukes go off. Okay, because when you go to Revelation 18, I'm gonna start at 8. I'm gonna start at 1. All right, just can't start at 8. You gotta start at the top. It says, after these things I saw then the angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, it is fallen. It has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So, when the scripture talks about, Babylon, or it's not talking about ancient Babylon, it's talking about, the Babylon of today, which will be, America. And hence how it says Babylon is fallen. So this is a statement how America, is gonna, fall. All right, and when it says it has become the habitation, right, like how you have a habitat of animals, the habitat of America, it will soon to be, just, a desert, creatures, hence the, unclean and hateful birds. All right, when you go to Isaiah, the 34th chapter, and the 11th verse, it says about the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it. The owl also and the raven shall dwell in it. And he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness. So you see these two, desert creatures, these two animals, these birds are going to dwell within America. And when it says that the Lord shall stretch upon it the line of confusion, it's going to be because when America gets destroyed, the destruction is going to be so great. You won't be able to tell where Florida was or where Washington was or where these different, like you have the Statue of Liberty. You won't be able to tell where these different, states are. That's how desolate this place is going to be. All right. This 14th verse says as well, the wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the highland, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl shall also rest there, and find for herself a place of rest. There shall the great owl make her nest, and lay and hatch, and gather under her shadow. There shall the vultures also be gathered, everyone with her mate. All right, so, it's only going to be a habitation for these desert, creatures. All right, another precept is Isaiah 13. And start at 8:19. It says, in Babylon, glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed with fire and brimstone. That's exactly how America's going to get destroyed with fire, and brimstone. Okay, coming from these nukes that these nations, possess, that the Lord has given the knowledge of how to make so they can use, for this day of destruction. All right. It says, and it shall never be inhabited, right? America won't be inhabited anymore because of the, that radiation. All right, the scriptures talk about that wormwood in Revelation, the 8th chapter. Revelation 8 and 11. This is the name of the star is called wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. So, because of that radiation, it's gonna affect Right? Things like, you know, the water. You try to drink the water. You know, America got, you know, lakes and etc. Is gonna affect that, but not only the lakes, but the land, you know, as well. All right, because that's how great the destruction is gonna be. All right, you don't even need that much missile or firepower to destroy America. That's just how, you know, bad it's going to, you know, get. All right, that's why it's gonna be, you know, it won't be inhabited. All right, it's gonna be, it won't be inhabited, you know, for a very long time. All right, back in Isaiah 13 and 21, well, 11, 20 again, it says, it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian percent there, right? You know, we don't have these fucking, you know, these gas stations, these 7-Elevens where you got, you know, these heathens within them, and you're gonna have these hot dog stands, etc. All right, because it's not gonna be, all right, how it is, because you know how these different heathens can come over here, start up their business, you know, get funding from the government, all right, set up their gas station in Czech neighborhoods, and you ain't gonna be able to do that. All right, it says, neither shall their shepherds make their fold there, but wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. And owls shall dwell there, and the satyrs shall dance there, and the wild beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. And we can see that, you know, we getting very near, you know, to that time. As you can see, the different, you know, the division amongst, you know, NATO and America, and how we are going against Iran. All right, so there's a lot of, you know, tension, you know, going on with these different nations where they're leaving America and teaming up with, you know, Russia. All right, you got the BRICS nations, you know, setting up their own currency, leaving the currency of America. That's also going to be a prelude of what's going to happen. These nations leaving America, and when that time comes, they're going to ultimately shoot nukes, all right, at this place, man. All this is for, you know, the will of Yahweh Shemel Shai, all right, to fulfill his will, okay, right? Like in Revelation 18 and 3, for all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath, of her fornication, right? You doing these different nations got influenced, you know, by America, following after America's wickedness, after its philosophies, okay? And the kings of the earth have committed fornication, where these different nations again dealing with America, all right? And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, right? You know, constantly getting rich off of America, you know, because America, you know, is the #1 consumer, all right? You even have things like the consumer report, because these Americans are just consumers. All they do is consume, okay? And they have gotten rich. It says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that he be not partakers of her sins, and that he receive not of her plague. So the only way to get that we gonna be able to get out of here is through, you know, the chariots. All right, we ain't hoping, if we ain't trying to save from no bunker. We ain't trying to get, you know, no bug out bags. We ain't trying to leave the country, go to Iceland or Greenland. No, we ain't doing that. All right, we ain't going to the farthest. We ain't trying to go far. That's not going to deliver. All right, that's not go. You know, that's not the way that we are going to get delivered. All right, our side, but we hope and our expectation is to be safe. All right, from Yahweh Shai. Okay, our deliverance is coming from Him. Okay, salvation, it will come from Yahweh Shai. All right, and it says, for his sins haven't reached unto heaven. All right, because all the wickedness this place does, you know, shut in the blood of the prophets. All right, the Lord ain't forget it. The things that He does behind the scenes, that the Lord sees that we don't know. Things that we know. It says, and Amos had remembered, you know, her iniquities. All right, and you know, these Edomites stink. All right, in their wicked mind, that their house is gonna continue forever, like as if that they have nothing to pay for, like the Most High ain't watching them. Okay, but the Lord is. Okay, because when you read Ecclesiastes 8:11, it says, because the sentence against an evil work is not done, you know, speedily. All right, you know, they think they get in the way, but you know, roughly paraphrasing it, and they think that, you know, the Lord ain't watching them, but that's not the case at all. All right. Continuing on, it says, reward her even as she rewarded you. Right. There's not a reward is not just a good thing. A reward can be, let me get the word for it at the moment too. It breaks it down. Is what one deserves. All right. So what does Esau Edom deserve? This is return or payment for service or hardship. So, what does Esau Edom deserve? Okay, does he deserve a good reward or a bad reward? He deserves what he gets. He's gonna get what he deserves. All right, he has reaped. He sowed wickedness, so he's gonna reap thereof. Okay. It says, "And double unto her double according to her works, in the cup which she had filled to her double. How much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow." All right, I just quoted it. All right, that's the mindset of these heathens, especially, all right, these Edomites, I should say. All right, especially this is the spirit of America, that she won't see, all right, sorrow. Okay. And it's rightly so that they feel like that because they've been given a great sword, but all right, they didn't count for the God of the Bible. All right, them in their carnality ain't count for the spirit. All right. It says, therefore shall our plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord power who judges her. So the way that the Lord, flooded the earth in the time of Noah is going to be a completely different scenario. All right, it's going to be burnt with fire. And also, you're going to have the plagues. All right, scriptures talk about the black and pale horse. All right, death, mourning, famines, different plagues that's going to be sent, from Yahweh Shemel Shai, letting these spirits out. All right, to kill, the wicked, to kill 2/3 of our people. It said, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Right, because they got, again, rich off this place. All right. Standing afar off for fear for torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for 1 hour is that judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So, all right, again, these different kings, these different heathens, again, that has been getting rich off America, all right, they're gonna weep because that money supply, these nations making billions of dollars off of America. But once it gets destroyed, they're gonna weep because they're like, oh, we can't make no money, or whatever language they speak. They ain't gonna be able to make money no more to benefit off of this place, right? Because this place is wicked, but they spend a lot of, this place spends a lot of money. All right. With that alone, is let's was edifying. I want to give our praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shah Ba'ashem Makar and the Barna City Apostles and Elders Great Millstone. And shalom to the I can teach and thought four corners in true sincerity. Shalom.